Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sports bettors across the nation, we welcome you back to another episode of The 10, your favorite, our favorite Big Ten betting show. It is week 12 in college football. There are college basketball games to discuss as well. We'll hit on everything in Big Ten country for you this week. But first, let me remind you that we have two amazing promotions ongoing here at Bet Rivers for you, beginning with our Bet Rivers football squares. Players who place a qualifying same game parlay of at least $10 on eligible NFL or NCAA football games receive one standard entry into the weekly squares game. Winning standard squares will be awarded a prize of a $20 bonus bet. You can see the app and the website for more details. In addition, our weekly profit boost pack is something you won't want to miss. You can opt in to a 3-pack of NCAA football profit boosts, including a live boost, a same game parlay boost, and a boost to use however you please. If you are betting college football this weekend, you need to log into your BetRivers app or your betrivers.com account to see more details and take advantage. Okay, we're going to go through every game this weekend on the card for week 12. Doug Kezirian is with me as always. We start the show today with a big one in Hollywood. The Iowa Hawkeyes on the road at the USC Trojans. The Trojans -6.5 here. This was 7 earlier in the week. It's now underneath a full touchdown. Our total is at 49. What do you think, Doug?
We've gone back and forth. Obviously, the weather forecast expected several inches of rain, or I should say a couple inches of rain, and it's a lot for a grass field. Excuse me. So I don't know. It's very Iowa weather, right? Similar to what we saw last week against Oregon. It's just really difficult to kind of forecast what the locker room or the mindset is, the psyche of these Hawkeyes players who had a path to the playoff in front of them. If they were able to stop that Oregon drive, then they'd have to win this game. I just worry. However, USC has sort of handled these types of teams this year, being Northwestern and Michigan, won and covered both of them at home. I just think Iowa's a little bit more formidable of opponent. I know sharp money came in at +7. I lean to the Hawkeyes here, but I'd have to get +7. So I want to wait for the market to move. It's a pass until I can get 7. I don't think they're going to be completely flat like we've seen some teams off these emotional letdowns. I think Kirk Ferentz has been around a while. I lean to the dog here, but I need the +7.
Whether it's the weather or the sharp money, it's enough to spook me off of my early week lean to the Trojans here. And it's even a favorable number for my lean to the Trojans. I would have loved that under 7 earlier this week. But yeah, as the week has gone on, I think there are enough data points to scare me off of actually betting this. One of those data points being the fact that Doug leans the opposite side. I got too much respect for that man, Kezirian. Let's get Troy Machir into the show. Welcome, Troy. Troy, how are people betting this game?
Yeah, the public definitely thinks this will be a low-scoring, close game in which USC comes out on top. Right now, 95% of the money and 90% of the tickets on the Trojans to win. The spread is 55% of the money and 51% of the tickets on the Hawkeyes to cover. And the under is where this game gets interesting. 91% of the money and 62% of the tickets are on the under. 49. 12 of Iowa's last 13 games as an underdog has gone under the total points line. It was rainy last week at Kinnick Stadium, and that was a very low scoring game against an Oregon team that isn't as flashy as they once were. And I think USC has been able to put up points against the kind of second tier Big Ten teams. But the under for me is the strongest play, and I agree with the public. And this is something you're going to see across the Big Ten. I'm not sure if it's people have gotten smart to the number as the season has progressed, or if just scoring is down in the conference, because the public is on a lot of unders this week.
Interesting. Okay, it may not be the last time we hear that sort of intel then for you if the public is on some unders. We'll see if we have more later in the show. Let's move to game 2 on Saturday. Penn State in East Lansing taking on the Michigan State Spartans. To say the Michigan State fan base has soured on Jonathan Smith would be an understatement. I was watching the Michigan State basketball game last night. They showed Jonathan Smith on the big screen, the Jumbotron. A raucous crowd of boos received him. I don't know what's going to happen here, but I do know this. This is a treacherous spot for the Nittany Lions. After that emotional loss to Indiana, it would not be a surprise to see a little bit of a hangover effect as they take the trip to East Lansing. Penn State favored by a full touchdown here on the road. The total's 49.5. Earlier this week, Doug, you were all over Sparty here. Have you held strong in that belief?
I do. It's fascinating because I think statistically or matchup wise in a vacuum, I think Penn State's the better team. And given the like you said, the fan base and the read of the Spartans, this would be a Penn State play. But we're not playing this game in a vacuum. We're playing this game off a demoralizing loss against Indiana, which was their season because of, just how the previous games have gone. How much do you really expect this team to be up for this game? It reminds me of Florida, Kentucky a week ago, where the Gators took Georgia down to the wire at the Swamp, and emotional, new coach, all that. And then last week, they barely showed up at all and completely smoked at Kentucky. I don't think this will be as lopsided, but I would not be shocked if we see sort of a high variance outcome like Sparty wins by 10, something like that. Um, they've been bad. That's the concern. But so was Kentucky at times, and I thought Florida. It's a lot of these games, even at the highest level, it's about your gas tank, your energy level, and it's really hard to bring it week in and week out. We saw that at times with Alabama during this long win streak where they should have lost to South Carolina, right? It's just coming in. How much do they have left in the tank? I just talked about it with Iowa. I worry about Penn State. I think Michigan State, with the quarterback change, is the right side here. So I'll take the home dog here.
Yeah, to your point, Michigan State is not totally dead in the water. They've changed the quarterback. Miljevic looks pretty good to me. He's very accurate, and I think the team rallied around him in spurts in his first real action last time out. To me, you got to go situation by situation with these coaches are going to get fired teams. Michigan State has made the tweaks where this locker room is still playing hard. The signs were there. They were an inch away from beating Minnesota. And look, beating Minnesota is not an accomplishment in and of itself, but Minnesota's been pretty good at home. That was a road trip for Michigan State. It would have been easy to roll over and die, and they didn't. I think it's really easy to let one loss turn into two here. And Penn State, coming off of a game they honestly deserve to win against Indiana, it's just an all-timer scary spot to have to take a road trip to a dead team after this. Let me ask you this, Doug, because I'm with you. I like Michigan State +7. I think there's value on it. You kind of alluded to the Kentucky-Florida spot here. Does +210 on the money line for Michigan State sound appealing to you too?
I think it's totally a variance game where I'll believe anything. The bell curve is not going to be clean here. I think it's going to be really, really bizarre and wonky. Just again, last week, Kentucky won by whatever it was, 30. I have a little too much respect for Penn State and defense travels, but like I said, I could see Sparty winning this by 10, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's good value. If you buy our pitch here that it's just a terrible spot and Michigan State's going to be improved with the new quarterback, over 2-1 is pretty good value for me for the Spartans to win outright. Let's move next on the list. Wisconsin on the road against the aforementioned Indiana Hoosiers here. Their undefeated season still intact by a toenail, basically. That catch still is playing in my mind over and over again. The Hoosiers -29.5 back at home in Bloomington. A low total we discussed earlier in the week, 44 here. Very rare that you see Indiana totals around 44, but again, Wisconsin's been playing every single game in Big Ten play far under the 40 mark this year. Doug, what do we do with this one?
I go back and forth with this game and even the Oregon game as well tonight. It's just a really tough read and big number. I think Wisconsin shows up a little bit, and I wonder if Zignetti. I mean, some of the reason that I mentioned last week that Penn State was taking a lot of sharp money is just the injuries mounting for the Hoosiers. It's not just that Zignetti might take his foot off the gas, or they might not be able just to grab the throat of the opponent and cover. It feels like it's probably a little too many points, but this might come down to like, will the Badgers score a touchdown? And I'm not ready to, bank on that. This is right around the number. I would probably lean Indiana here, but it's not a play. I just don't know. I mean, look, congrats to the Badgers for the win last week, but they pitched a shutout in the second half, and that's what it took. So I'm just not sure they can hang around in this game. I just don't think they have the horses.
Yep, it was a weird weather game, an impressive win for Wisconsin, but also, this Wisconsin team, their season is long over here, and we're kind of going psychological handicapping around all of the bottom half teams in this league right now. But to me, Wisconsin is not trying to backdoor their way into a bowl game. They're probably patting themselves on the back that they got to celebrate something. Go to Bloomington. It's like walking to your death, right? Hope you enjoyed your death row meal last week. Now it's time for the electric chair. We know Cignetti can run scores up whenever he wants. I'd assume he wants to do that in this game. At the same time, Wisconsin's been very good, even against the elite teams in this league, at keeping games under 40 somehow, whether that's just ball control or, improved defense in the second half of the season. For me, you have to stay away. As much as I want to back Kurt Cignetti against dead dog type teams, this number's enormous. I don't know what to do with that total. It feels so low for an Indiana game, but so high for a Wisconsin game. I'm going to somehow keep myself off of a play in Wisconsin and Indiana. We move next to Michigan at Northwestern. This is a Wrigley Field game here. Michigan minus 10.5 on the road. Northwestern plus 310 on the money line if you want to back the Purple Cats outright. Another low total at 41. We agreed early in the week, Doug, that we were both on the underdog plus 10.5 here. You still holding strong in your Northwestern beliefs?
I will say, talked to an odds maker, really respected money came in on the Wolverines at 10 and 11 and 11.5. And the over 41. So absolutely opposite of everything I would play in this game. Now, the reason I like the Wildcats is because I've been impressed. This isn't Northwestern of the last couple years where it's 3 inches in a cloud of dust, not even 3 yards. It's the Wildcats have only gotten kind of outgunned by really 2 teams, USC and then Oregon early on, right? And Michigan is not that. They don't have the quarterback play. They don't have the wide receivers of those 2 teams. I don't think they can just kind of step on the gas. This Wolverines team beat Purdue at home by 5 points in their last game. I wish this was on campus at Northwestern, but the fact that they don't have to travel and it's in Chicago, it'll be a cool atmosphere. I just can't get behind Underwood and this Wolverines offense laying this kind of lumber against a Wildcats offense that I think is fairly competent. So I agree with the over, but I do think they're going to hang around and keep this inside the number. There's no way I'd lay. I mean, look, Michigan is better and could cover, but I like the home dog here. Well, quote unquote home dog.
Yeah, I looked through this. I think I still like Northwestern plus 10.5. I also feel exactly what you're feeling, where there's smart, respected people in this industry backing Michigan here. I feel like we've had some similar spots in the last couple weeks that have not gone our way, so I'm trying to be careful with this one. Look, the total to me would be the way to try and maybe cover our bases here. And I looked through some of Northwestern's games against quality teams in this league, competent teams in this league. They're all going far over 41. Back early in the season, that Oregon game was 48. You had Penn State 43, and that was in the middle of Penn State's real figuring out who we are time period. The last 2 for Northwestern, long over this, 49 at Nebraska, 55 against USC. Now, look, a lot of these teams play a lot different than Michigan. Michigan will play a ball control game, play you through the trenches. Northwestern's fared really well in those games. That's part of why I like them getting a touchdown and a field goal here. But to me, I think you can lean Northwestern plus 10.5 and also lean to the over. And if somehow, some way, Michigan really does just run through them, maybe Underwood finally has some big plays through the air, I think it would hit the over here. I expect Northwestern to score at least on a couple possessions in this game. If they can get us to 2 touchdowns, maybe 2 touchdowns and a field goal even, I think you're feeling pretty good. So for me, I still like Northwestern plus 10.5. It was my best bet early in the week. It's still on my card. I think I'm also adding the over at 41 as well and hoping that I can hit both. From the Wolverines to the Buckeyes, their biggest rival here. It's the UCLA Bruins in Columbus this week. Huge number. Ohio State minus 31.5. The total is 48. What are your thoughts, Doug?
I really have nothing here. I think the Buckeyes are playing well. I don't think there's stat padding for Julian Sands' Heisman campaign. I think it's going to come down to the Michigan game, and I think it's going to come down to the Big Ten title game. I really don't think this game they're going to have to like throw in the fourth quarter. Ryan Day is going to have to go for the jugular or anything like that. So that's in the back of my head when you see matchups like this and knowing that Sands right there at the top of the list in the discussion. Can the Bruins generate any offense? They certainly didn't do much against Indiana. But that's when the shine came off the Bruins. We know the pace of Ohio State is really low, so I'm looking at the under. Obviously, we know that vaunted defense with the Buckeyes and the first half no touchdown thing that finally came to an end. I was looking at under and the Hawkeye side, but I can't lay that kind of lumber. I really can't because I actually have respect for the interim OC with Neuheisel and everything. So it's a pass, but I think if I had to play anything on this game, it'd be the under.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think that's the slight lean for me, but ultimately it's a no touch. These huge numbers can just go such a variety of different ways. I totally agree with your scout on Ohio State here that they have not been seeking to put up prolific numbers, run up individual stat lines, or even hang big numbers as a team on teams. They seem very focused on the big task at hand, the defending national championships champions, knowing that there's multiple games at the end of the season, a Big Ten championship to play for. They're just very task oriented, totally content to score 30 and win 30-3 instead of score 50 and get some style points along the way. I haven't seen anything from UCLA in recent weeks that intrigues me. You know, we talked about them last week. We were both on the Bruins against the Nebraska backup quarterback. It was a really uninspiring performance from them. Give some credit to Nebraska's offensive game plan in that game. But, you know, going back to the 56-6 drubbing against Indiana, it's a couple straight uninspiring performances from UCLA. So to me, that probably gives me enough optimism that against the elite Ohio State defense, there's going to be incompetence from the Bruins here. And with an Ohio State team that's been totally content to just cruise control, I think the under is the smart side. It's not going to end up on my card because ultimately I can see a variety of outcomes here, but I think that's where I lean, and it's right in alignment with you, which I always like. A couple more games here on the football side of things this week. Two more, in fact. The second to last takes us to Champaign, where the Maryland Terrapins take on Brett Bielema's Illinois Fighting Illini. Illinois minus 15 is our number. Maryland plus 440 on the money line if you like the Terps outright. Our total is 51.5. We haven't discussed this one yet this week, Doug. What do you think?
I keep going back and forth and wondering if I'm going to kick myself just leaving money on the table, not fading this Terps team, right? They've been lost 5 or 6 in a row, which is kind of the script of these Mike Locksley teams in Maryland. They start strong, fade. There are things I like about this Maryland team. The defense is solid. The quarterback I like, but just they've been in this negative spiral. So I'm just torn here. 15's too big of a number. So the question is, do I like the over or do I like the dog, frankly? Probably the over is how I would play this game. I've been examining this game the last couple days, trying to just think. I think it's going to be an over, and we're going to kick ourselves. These are two teams that are going to score points, and I know I like that Maryland D, but I just wonder how much is left in their tank down the stretch here. They've done a nice job, but this Illinois team's pretty good, and that's why I'm just going to lean to the over here. But I have a feeling I'll be complaining Saturday afternoon.
Gotta love those types of games. It's a
Sure.
juiced up number for sure, right? Because Maryland's been so dreadful in this losing streak that, you know, I feel like the value at a glance is the dog catching 15 here. But if you can talk yourself confidently into betting the Terrapins against a good football team right now, more power to you. Illinois qualifies as a good football team, especially at home. This is a team that we know in games against teams that are content to play shootouts. Illinois can hang points with the best of them. Altmaier can pick apart defenses when he's not under pressure. I like your scout on the over as probably the side to play here. To me, it really would be dog or nothing here. And that's got to mean nothing because I just don't want any part of Maryland against anybody right now. Let's get Troy back in here. Troy, we made you wait a while, but what can you tell us on Maryland, Illinois?
Yeah, I can tell you that Maryland's bad. They are in a bad spot. They are not playing good football. They lost by 15 points to Rutgers last week. But that 15 points that is currently the spread is throwing people off of Illinois. Right now, 73% of the money and 57% of the tickets are on Maryland. So split on tickets, but pretty strong money on Maryland when you're giving them 15 points. I tend to believe that if this were 12 and a half, we'd look at this a lot different. Now, the public is going against Doug here. Like I said, a lot of unders this week. 86% of the money and 55% of the tickets are on the under. We've seen that with stronger money versus tickets going to the unders this week in Big Ten football. I think the number is right around 51 and a half. But I think Illinois will win this game. I think it will probably be a similar result to the Rutgers Maryland game last week, somewhere in the 30-20. But that puts your rate at 50. But let's talk quickly about Illinois as a favorite. They've covered the spread in their last 7 games as a favorite. They've won 10 straight as a favorite, and 6 of their last 7 games as a favorite has gone over the total points line. So when they are favored, more often than not, they take care of business for the public. And that's what the public is hoping, at least as it relates to winning and on the spread.
Interesting. All right. Thank you for the added insights, Troy. We appreciate it. One more football game to get to here. Purdue out west taking on the Washington Huskies. A very disappointing result for Washington last week in a weird, terrible weather game that found Wisconsin finally prevailing here. Purdue has been feisty, back-to-back covers against Michigan and Ohio State, but some of Purdue's more dreadful performances this year have come against some of the worst teams on their schedule. Help me diagnose what Washington is, Doug. I still don't know if they're good, bad, what, something in between. What do you do with this game?
Yeah, I've been searching for the word all season, really, for this Washington team because I like Jed Fish, but they've just kind of underperformed for the last couple seasons. Remember, winless in conference last year on the road, but some of those were really tough asks, like literally cross country twice in 3 weeks kind of thing. And then this year they just laid some eggs and they didn't score in 3 quarters against Wisconsin, including the entire second half last week. This is a team I want to fade. The problem is Purdue, you just wonder if they're going to lay an egg, right? Like, remember, they went to Northwestern and got completely blanked, and they're still winless in conference play. I laid the points 1.5 or whatever it was against Rutgers, and they had that stupid sort of self-interception fumble thing at the end that really stuck a thorn in my side. But then they bounced back and only lost by 5 at Michigan. Had the nice backdoor cover a week ago against the Buckeyes. I feel pretty confident that Barry Odom's going to have this team show up and play competently. I can't say the same for this Washington team. They've been very disappointing. Now they are at home here, and it is a big-ish number. I just don't think it's quite enough for me to get involved with the Boilermakers, but I'm not laying it either. I've been disappointed this entire Jed Fish era, frankly. I guess post Penix, as I would put it. So I lean to Purdue. I really want to bet against Washington. I just don't know if this is the game to do so.
Yeah, Purdue sitting here 2-8, 0-7 in the conference. How long can a team keep fighting for is a question for me. And
Right.
Barry Odom is great. I think long term he will be fine. This is a treacherous trip across the country against an offense that we know can score when they're not in the snow, that is presumably in a huge bounce back spot, right? I assume that Washington wants to come out and put some sort of statement performance together here. Purdue's secondary has just been so bad. They rank 17th out of 8 teams in this league, and it is a good matchup for the Washington offense that can score through the air. I think it's Washington minus 16.5 for me. It's not my most confident play of the week, but I do think it's going to be my last play on the card. And I hope at some point I can read this Purdue team right, because I've been on the wrong side of every Purdue game for what seems like 2 months right now. Troy, let's get you back in here. What is the public on here?
Yeah, they're obviously strong on Washington to win, and that should come as no surprise. They've won 18 straight against non-ranked teams at home. And the public's also on the money and tickets on the Huskies to cover 16.5, which I think is a tick too much. But Purdue gives up lots of points on the back end and is generally not a great team. Here's another under 79% of the money and 72% of the tickets. So there's a pretty decent consensus there. Each of Purdue's last 7 games against non-ranked teams have gone under the total points line. I think Washington will win this game and it will score 20 points, 24 points. They're not a super dynamic team, in my opinion. They haven't taken the steps in the right direction. This is just a brutal game on the slate this weekend. This is one where if you do bet, you're not even checking you're not even putting on the TV. You check your app and follow along. Washington, we've scratched our heads at what this team is all season, and I still don't know. And I don't know if I'll be able to figure out what they are, even if they win by 40. Because the next week they will come back down to earth and score 14 points or score none in the first half and score 21 in the second half. It's just a befuddling team. I think they should have the horses to beat Purdue, but 16.5 is just a lot. But the public is pretty convincingly on Washington to cover and the under 51.5.
Fascinating. Okay, thank you. A lot of big numbers this week. A lot of different ways you can approach handicapping these games this week. Hopefully, we've guided you through it as best we can. As I alluded to at the beginning of the show, it's also college basketball season, which makes me very happy. I've got a couple games on Friday night that I'd love to discuss with you here in this league, beginning with the earliest tonight at 9 p.m. We've got Illinois hosting Colgate. Illinois has been unbelievable this year. I mean, they are up to 4th on KenPom. The analytics love this team, and that's with a bunch of injuries. They're without their star center, Tomislav Ivisic. It did not hurt them whatsoever in the Texas Tech game. His brother filled in admirably. This is a trappy spot for me for Illinois. Coming straight off of that Texas Tech win, looking ahead to an Alabama team with a lot of firepower that made that game against Purdue last night pretty fun. Now you get Colgate, who you've got some ties to. Illinois stole Colgate's defensive coordinator, assistant coach, Cameron Crocker, this offseason. This is Crocker, who runs the Illinois defense against some old pals from Colgate that are still on staff. A weird 9 p.m. type tip against a Colgate program who, mind you, has held up really well in games against big teams. In the opener this season, they lost at the Breslin Center to Michigan State by just 11, covered comfortably. Go back a year ago. They took Syracuse down to the final possession, almost beat them. And they also went to Rupp Arena and lost to Kentucky by just 10. I think this Colgate team has a formula. They can slow things down. They've got a star guard and a star big man that can both win individual matchups. Illinois has shot the lights out this year, but this is an inflated number given all the injuries that still plague this team. At some point, you expect Illinois to not be world beaters. I think tonight is the night for that. I will be on Colgate plus 30.5, and then Illinois can bounce back nicely and handle Alabama next week. One more game that I'm keeping an eye on tonight, and this is the game of the night in college basketball. Arizona taking on UCLA. This is a quote-unquote neutral site game. It's in Los Angeles at the Clippers Arena. Now, how well are UCLA fans going to pack that arena? I don't know. Arizona fans travel pretty well, and UCLA has a hard time selling out their home court. This is a small number here, Arizona -2. I think it's a number you have to play on the Wildcats side of this. Arizona showed what they are against Florida in the opener this year. They are a team with an elite guard stopper in Jaden Bradley, who gave the Florida point guards fits in that game. And they have Koa Pete, who physically may be the most impressive power forward in the sport outside of Cam Boozer. He's a pro in a college basketball uniform. UCLA is very star-driven. Donovan Dent, who missed last game, has to carry a huge burden for this team. We don't know how healthy he is. He is not going to want to deal with Jaden Bradley for 40 minutes tonight. Tyler Bilodeau at the 4, they rely on him to score 15, 20 points. Koa Pete is just a tough matchup for Bilodeau. I think Arizona has some run away with it potential, as they showed in that second half against Florida. UCLA mucked this game up last year to win a 57-54 game. I don't think they can do that to this year's Arizona team. Revenge game as well for Jaden Bradley and company. Give me the Wildcats 2. Now, we were talking before the show began. Troy's got some thoughts on some games later this weekend as well. So, Troy, I throw it over to you.
Yeah, I'm very excited, as you are, for the start of college basketball season. This is my bread and butter. I've been covering this sport for well over a decade, and this is my favorite time of year other than mid-March. And, the game I want to look at is Marquette versus Maryland. Maryland going on the road for their first real road game of the season. Buzz Williams, their new head coach, coached at Marquette for several seasons before going to Virginia Tech and then Texas A&M and ultimately ending up at Maryland. Here's the thing you need to know about Buzz Williams' coach teams. He gets them into an amazing culture of really a strong bond where their players are able to rally behind each other. And even if Buzz isn't the world's greatest X's and O's coach, they mature so quickly that they are able to cover their butts in perilous spots. The issue is year one of Buzz Williams coach teams, and we've had 4 year ones since he likes to be a nomad. His year one is not generally all that good because he really needs to find out who he has, and he needs to start sculpting and molding these players. So far Maryland has dropped a game at home against the Georgetown team that's a bit improved. Maryland missed its first 16 3-pointers in that game. Maryland is not a good 3-point shooting team. You need 3-pointers to drop on the road. Now, Maryland is one of the 3 best teams in the country at getting to the foul line. This game, we don't have a line on it yet. Ken Pom has this as a 4-point win for Marquette. I think Marquette wins this game, but it is very dicey for me because of the free throws. Now, you're not going to get a great whistle on the road, especially it's going to be a very intense environment with Buzz being back. But that is one where I'm very intrigued to see where the line is. I've seen a projected line at 6, and if it was 6, I might take Maryland. But if it's at 4 or 3.5, I would be on Marquette there. And the other game is on Sunday, and it is Purdue versus Akron. And Purdue, fresh off a great win at Alabama, getting Trey Kaufman back was huge. And they obviously have one of the best players in the country in Braden Smith. This is a game that, they've been favored in their non-conference cupcake schedule by in and around 30 points. But Akron is very good. Ken Pom has this as an 18-point win for the Boilermakers. And if this game is around 21.5 or so, I would take Akron. But if it's 18 or less, hammering Purdue. But the line I think is the smartest is both these teams love to score points. If this game is in the 150s, it's going over. Now, I anticipate it being probably around 161.5 or something like that, but this is a game that points will be scored at a breakneck speed. Braden Smith scored 21 of his 27 against Alabama in the second half. And I do think Purdue beats Akron, but Akron is one of the better true mid-majors in the country. And I think, Purdue got done doing some sleepwalking in its first 2 games where it was tied at the half against a cupcake school. So that should be a pretty interesting game if you're sick and tired of NFL football on Sunday.
Ken Pom projects 162 as the total in that Purdue-Akron game. Can certainly see some points being scored there. All right. Thank you very much, Troy. We will have more for you as college basketball season progresses. For now, we conclude the show, as always, with our best bets. Doug, back over to you. What is your favorite play for the weekend?
I'm really torn on a couple of these because I like them. I would say Sparty plus the 7. Obviously, early in the week, it was 7.5, but I just think it's a lot to ask of Penn State. If the Nittany Lions can rally the troops off that demoralizing loss, which would have been a giant feather in their cap for the season, and then go on the road and cover 7 with all the moving parts that's going on, and I think Sparty with the improved quarterback play with the change, then fine, I'll tip my cap to them. I just think there's too many things, sort of check marks in the side of Michigan State here plus the 7. So I'll make that my best bet for the weekend.
All right. I am with you on Sparty this weekend. I'm holding strong with my midweek best bet again as well. I'm going to keep it at Northwestern plus 10.5 against Michigan. Thought about switching this to the over. Ultimately, I'm going to trust my gut and fade the sharp money on this a little bit. I just think Northwestern has been stellar in trenches-based games. They're perfectly comfortable with this game script, field position, defense, run it up your gut. Michigan has not looked right to me in recent weeks. This is not a team that has really impressed in quite a while now. They are not necessarily playing for style points. They're just trying to get to the finish line and be unbeaten between now and Ohio State. I think in a Wrigley Field game, juiced up environment, a lot of Chicago-based fans there. I think Northwestern can get it done. Give me the Cats plus 10.5. Doug's got the Spartans plus 7, backing 2 underdogs as our best bets for week 12. All right, folks, thank you very much for watching. As always, this was another episode of The 10. Reminder, we do this twice a week, every single Wednesday. You can get our midweek early look at the slate. And then on Fridays, we lock in our cards and go through every game on the schedule. Reminder, we are part of College Sports Rush here on the Bet Rivers Sports Network. You can also get Sports Better's Paradise with Jimmy Ott every single week. Don't miss out on the college football squares. Do not miss out on the weekly profit boost packs as well. For Troy, for Doug, for our entire team of producers behind the scenes, we thank you for watching this. Good luck in week 12, and we'll see you again next week.